Welcome, jewels of inestimable value. The most dangerous kind of woman is the one who doesn't need you but still chooses to stay. In a world where relationships are often defined by dependency, the Sigma female defies every rule. She moves with quiet strength, a self-assured enigma that both fascinates and unsettles those around her. Men, in particular, find themselves captivated yet unnerved by her presence. Studies reveal that 97% of modern men are deeply uncomfortable with these women, and it's not because of anything they do, but because of who they. These women exist outside of the typical power dynamics that society has long clung to, and their independence shakes the core of men who've been conditioned to believe they should always lead. Why do so many men find Sigma females so threatening? The answer lies not in aggression or defiance, but in the subtle way she redefines power and purpose. What is it about her that causes men to falter, their confidence crumbling in her silent wake? Let's dive deeper and uncover the real reason why the Sigma female rattles 97% of men to their core. Number 1. Her purpose isn't tied to the relationship, the unchained spirit. The Sigma female lives with a purpose that isn't tied to anyone else, especially not a romantic relationship. While many people, both men and women, are shaped by their roles in relationships, whether it's as a partner, wife, or girlfriend, she refuses to let that define her. Her identity is deeply rooted in her own personal goals, ambitions, and desires. This self-sufficiency can be unsettling for men who are used to women shaping their lives around them. They expect a level of dependence or even admiration that often fuels their sense of importance in a relationship. But the Sigma female doesn't need anyone to complete her. She's already whole. Her sense of purpose goes beyond the traditional notions of partnership. She's focused on her own growth, pursuing passions, careers, and dreams with a singular intensity. And it's not that she doesn't care about relationships. She just doesn't let them become the center of her universe. Men who are used to being the main focus in a woman's life are thrown off by this. They find themselves unsure of where they fit because she doesn't orbit around them. This can make them feel powerless or irrelevant, as if they have nothing to offer her that she can't already provide for herself. She's not playing the typical relationship game where she's waiting for validation or seeking approval. She doesn't need a man to feel successful, fulfilled, or happy. This leaves many men feeling off balance because they've been taught to believe their role is to be the provider, the protector, or the emotional anchor. But the Sigma female doesn't need any of that. Her independence isn't a statement of defiance, it's just who she is. It's not that she's cold or distant, she just prioritizes her own journey. And anyone who comes into her life has to understand that they are part of it, not the focus of it. This creates an entirely different dynamic, one that men aren't always equipped to handle. They're often drawn to her strength and independence, but at the same time feel intimidated by it. The truth is, the Sigma female's self-reliance can make men question their own sense of worth in the relationship. If she doesn't need them for anything, then what is their role? It's a question that many men struggle to answer, and it's why so many feel unsettled in her presence. She's a reminder that relationships don't have to be about dependency. They can be about two strong individuals choosing to walk side by side, each with their own path. Number 2, she sees through facades, the mirror they fear. The Sigma female has an uncanny ability to see through facades, and that makes her especially dangerous to men who hide behind them. In a world where many people present a version of themselves that they think others want to see, the Sigma female cuts through the surface with ease. She doesn't fall for charm or outward displays of confidence. What others might mistake for strength, she often recognizes as insecurity covered by bravado. This makes her presence deeply unsettling for men who rely on these masks to navigate their relationships. When a man tries to impress her with flashy gestures, over-the-top confidence, or smooth talk, he quickly realizes none of it works on her. She's not easily impressed, and it's not because she's cynical. She just understands the difference between genuine character and a carefully constructed persona. It's not that she's harsh or dismissive. She simply has no time for inauthenticity. She can see when someone is pretending, and that can make those around her feel exposed. Men, in particular, are often left unsure of how to react when the usual tactics don't land. She reads people in ways they're not used to being read, and it forces them to confront parts of themselves they might not even be fully aware of. This ability to see through facades leaves men vulnerable. It's not just that she notices their flaws, but that she sees the insecurities they work so hard to hide. For many men, this level of insight is disarming because they're used to controlling how they're perceived. In front of her, their carefully crafted image falls apart, and they find themselves feeling raw, stripped down to their real selves, and this is where the tension lies. The Sigma female doesn't judge, but she also doesn't allow anyone to hide. She simply sees, and for some, being truly seen is terrifying. The way she navigates this insight is often quiet and non-confrontational, which only makes it more powerful. She doesn't need to call someone out directly. She doesn't need to make a spectacle of their weaknesses. Instead, she just knows, and that knowing alone is enough to shake a man's confidence. The illusion of control slips away, and he's left wondering how much of himself she's already figured out. Her ability to see beyond the surface leaves him feeling vulnerable in a way few other women can. It's not that she exposes their weaknesses to the world, she doesn't need to. She simply holds up a mirror that forces them to see themselves clearly. And for many men, that's more than enough to make them uncomfortable. This deep perception also makes it hard for anyone to manipulate her. She's not easily fooled by appearances or words. Men who are used to controlling situations with charm or power games find themselves at a loss. They can't outsmart her because she's already ahead of them. This puts them in a position they're not used to being in, uncertain, exposed, and unable to predict her next move. It's why many men find themselves both drawn to her and afraid of her at the same time. There's no room for pretense with her, and that kind of raw, unfiltered interaction can be too intense for those who've spent their lives building walls. Number 3, her silence speaks volumes, the mystery that unsettles. The Sigma female has a way of letting her silence do the talking, and it speaks louder than words ever could. In a world where people constantly feel the need to fill every gap with noise, she stands out by embracing the power of quiet. Her silence isn't empty or passive. It's deliberate, purposeful, and full of meaning. When she chooses not to speak, it leaves a lasting impact, often saying more than any argument or conversation could. Men especially are used to women voicing their thoughts, seeking validation, or explaining themselves. But the Sigma female doesn't play by those rules. Her silence is her strength, and it can be deeply unsettling. When she doesn't respond the way men expect, it throws them off balance. They're left wondering what she's thinking, trying to decipher the meaning behind her quiet demeanor. Her silence creates a space that forces them to reflect on their own actions and words, often making them more self-conscious. Men who rely on verbal sparring or who are used to dominating conversations find themselves in unfamiliar territory. Her refusal to engage in unnecessary talk makes them feel exposed, as if she's in control of the situation without even trying. What makes her silence even more powerful is that it's never driven by fear or discomfort. She's not silent because she's unsure of herself. Quite the opposite. Her silence comes from a place of confidence and self-assuredness. She doesn't feel the need to explain her every move or opinion. She doesn't have to fill the air with chatter to prove her worth. This quiet confidence makes men uneasy because it disrupts the usual dynamics they're accustomed to. In most situations, silence is seen as weakness or submission, but with the Sigma female, it's anything but. Her silence is her way of saying, "I don't need to prove anything to you." And that's a statement many men aren't prepared to handle. The real power of her silence lies in how it forces others to confront themselves. When she doesn't respond to provocations or attempts to impress her, it leaves men with nothing to work with but their own thoughts. They start questioning themselves, wondering if they've said the wrong thing or if they've failed to live up to her expectations. Her silence becomes a mirror, reflecting their insecurities and making them feel more vulnerable than they're used to. It's a form of communication that operates on a deeper level, one that most people aren't equipped to navigate. For many men, this lack of verbal affirmation is unsettling. They're used to receiving feedback, whether it's praise, criticism, or even confrontation. But the Sigma female doesn't always give them that luxury. She doesn't need to. Her silence leaves space for them to realize that she's not easily impressed or swayed by words alone. She doesn't need constant reassurance or validation, and this forces them to examine why they seek it from her in the first place. In relationships, men often use words to establish dominance or control, but her silence makes those tactics ineffective. She can't be drawn into unnecessary arguments, and she won't waste her time on petty discussions. Instead, her silence speaks to a deeper truth. She knows her worth, and she doesn't need anyone's approval to confirm it. Men who are used to dominating conversations or manipulating situations with clever words find themselves powerless in the face of her quiet resolve. Her silence is not just the absence of sound, it's a powerful presence. It's a statement of independence and confidence that leaves men uncertain of how to proceed. It forces them to confront their own need for validation and their discomfort with being truly seen without the usual distractions. The Sigma female's silence is her strongest weapon, and it leaves a lasting impression long after the conversation has ended. Number 4. A quiet confidence that dwarfs loud bravado, the unshakable fortress. The Sigma females. Quiet confidence is something that few people truly understand, and it often dwarfs the loud bravado many men project. She doesn't need to be the center of attention or the loudest voice in the room to make her presence felt. Her confidence is internal, not dependent on external validation or approval. Men, on the other hand, are often conditioned to show their strength through grand displays, whether it's through dominance in conversation, physical presence, or social status. But in the presence of the Sigma female, all that noise starts to feel like exactly what it is: noise. Her quiet demeanor isn't a sign of weakness or passivity. It's a calm assurance that she doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. Men who thrive on external displays of power often find themselves confused or even threatened by her. While they're trying to make themselves seem larger or more important, she simply exists in her own space, unbothered and unimpressed. It's a stark contrast that can make their loudness feel hollow. She doesn't engage in their attempts to show off because she doesn't need to. What makes her confidence so disarming is that it's steady and unwavering. It doesn't fluctuate based on who's in the room or what the situation is. Men are often drawn to her, yet uncomfortable around her, because she forces them to confront the difference between real confidence and the performance of it. Her quiet strength leaves a lasting impression without ever having to raise her voice. Number 5. Refusal to play the power game, the one they can't control. The Sigma female's refusal to play the power game is one of her most defining traits, and it's a quality that deeply unsettles men who thrive on control. In relationships and social settings, there's often an unspoken competition for dominance: who leads, who follows, who has the upper hand. But the Sigma female doesn't participate in this game. She's not interested in gaining power over others, nor is she willing to give up her own autonomy. This makes her unpredictable and difficult to navigate for men who are used to traditional power dynamics. When a man tries to assert control or manipulate the situation, he quickly realizes that it doesn't work with her. She doesn't respond to attempts to dominate, but she also doesn't feel the need to overpower anyone else. She simply exists on her own terms, unaffected by the usual tug-of-war for control. This can be frustrating for men who are used to women either pushing back or submitting. The Sigma female doesn't do either. She stays in her lane, confident in her own authority, without needing to prove anything. What makes her so intriguing is that she's not rebelling for the sake of it. She's not looking for a fight, or trying to disrupt things just to make a point. Her refusal to engage in the power struggle is simply a reflection of her independence. She doesn't see power as something to be fought over. It's just a natural part of who she is. And for men who are used to defining relationships through control, this neutrality can be both confusing and captivating. Number 6. Doesn't chase, doesn't flee, she just walks away. The calm detachment. The Sigma female stands out because she doesn't chase, she doesn't flee, she simply walks away. And that's what makes her so powerful. In a world where relationships often involve a constant push and pull dynamic, she refuses to play the game. She's not the woman who will run after someone for attention, nor will she retreat in fear or frustration. When things aren't right, she just calmly walks away, as if nothing and no one is worth sacrificing her peace or dignity. This level of detachment is rare, and it catches people off guard, especially men who are used to women reacting emotionally or seeking resolution. Her ability to walk away isn't driven by coldness or lack of care. It's rooted in her understanding of her own value. She knows what she brings to the table, and she won't beg someone to see it. If a situation doesn't serve her, or if someone tries to undermine her worth, she leaves without hesitation. This behavior leaves men feeling powerless because it strips them of control. They can't provoke her into staying, and they can't manipulate her into reacting. She remains centered, and her detachment only highlights their need for control. Walking away doesn't mean she doesn't feel emotions. It's just that she refuses to let those emotions dictate her actions. She understands that staying in a situation that doesn't align with her values or happiness is a form of self-betrayal, and she's too self-aware for that. Her calm exit speaks louder than any words could, and it's something men struggle to forget. Number 7. The woman that exists outside the system. The rebel who follows no script. The Sigma female is the woman who exists outside the system, and that makes her a mystery that men struggle to comprehend. Society has long set expectations for how women should behave, whether it's the nurturing caregiver, the ambitious career woman, or the social butterfly who thrives on attention. But the Sigma female doesn't fit into any of these molds. She doesn't conform to the roles that others try to place on her. She lives by her own rules, uninterested in the labels or expectations that society imposes on women. This independence is both her greatest strength and the source of discomfort for many men. Men often expect women to seek validation through relationships, career achievements, or social status. But the Sigma female doesn't derive her sense of worth from external sources. She doesn't need the approval of a partner, a boss, or even her friends. She operates outside of the system, and that makes her unpredictable. Men can't quite figure out what drives her because she's not motivated by the same things they're used to seeing in women. This can be intimidating because they can't easily categorize or control her. What's most intriguing about her is that she doesn't rebel just for the sake of rebelling. She's not consciously rejecting societal norms to make a statement. She's simply following her own path. This makes her an outlier, a woman who can't be easily defined or boxed in, and for men who thrive on predictability, her independence is both fascinating and unsettling. Number 8. Unpredictability that shakes the core, the wild card they can't tame. The unpredictability of the Sigma female shakes men to their core. She's not someone you can easily read, predict, or control. In a world where so much revolves around routine and expectations, her ability to move in ways that defy convention makes her stand out. Men are used to certain patterns in relationships. They expect a woman to react a certain way, to follow a certain emotional script. But with the Sigma female, nothing is ever that straightforward. She doesn't react out of impulse or fall into predictable emotional traps, and that leaves men unsure of how to handle her. Her unpredictability comes from a deep sense of self-awareness. She doesn't act based on how others think she should act. Instead, her decisions are driven by her own internal compass, which doesn't necessarily align with societal norms. One day, she may engage deeply in conversation, while the next, she may pull back without explanation. This isn't because she's playing games, but because she follows her own rhythm. Men who are used to controlling the flow of a relationship or situation are left guessing, constantly trying to figure out where they stand with her. This lack of predictability makes her all the more intriguing. She keeps men on their toes, never quite sure what her next move will be, and that uncertainty can be both thrilling and unsettling. It challenges the traditional dynamics where men feel they have the upper hand. Her unpredictability forces them to reassess how they approach her. and that can be a deeply uncomfortable experience. Number 9. A disinterest in validation strips away their armor, the invisible weapon. The Sigma female's disinterest in validation is a powerful force that strips away the typical armor many men rely on. In a world where people often seek approval and affirmation to feel secure, she operates differently. She doesn't need constant praise, recognition, or reassurance from others to validate her worth. This lack of need for external validation is both refreshing and disconcerting, especially for men who are accustomed to their worth being measured by how much others admire them. Men often use compliments, gestures, or even grand displays of affection as tools to gain approval or control in a relationship. But the Sigma female is not swayed by these tactics. She doesn't respond to flattery or attempts to win her over with words. Her self-worth comes from within, not from the external validation that others seek. This can be disorienting for men who are used to receiving feedback and using it to gauge their success or influence. When their usual methods of winning someone's approval fall flat, they're left questioning their own strategies and even their own self-worth. Her disinterest in validation is not an act of defiance, but a reflection of her confidence. She doesn't need anyone's approval to know her value. This forces men to confront their own reliance on external validation and can make them feel exposed. They realize that their usual tactics for managing relationships and securing control are ineffective against her. The Sigma female's self-assuredness and independence make her a figure who challenges the very foundations of how men view their own power and influence. Number 10. She challenges the provider mindset, the paradigm shift. The Sigma female challenges the traditional provider mindset in ways that unsettle many men. In a conventional view of relationships, men are often seen as the primary providers, whether it's financially, emotionally, or in terms of security. They're expected to be the ones who take charge, offer protection, and ensure stability. But the Sigma female doesn't fit into this mold. She is self-sufficient and doesn't rely on a partner to fulfill her needs or validate her existence. This makes the traditional provider role not only irrelevant, but also somewhat perplexing to her. Men who are accustomed to being the ones who provide and lead find their roles questioned when they interact with a Sigma female. She doesn't need someone to provide for her because she is perfectly capable of doing so herself. Her independence challenges the notion that a man's worth in a relationship is tied to his ability to provide. This dynamic shifts the power balance and forces men to reconsider their own self-perception and value. For many men, this is deeply uncomfortable because it upends long-standing beliefs about masculinity and relationship dynamics. They are used to feeling essential through their role as providers, but with the Sigma female, their traditional sense of importance is called into question. Her capability to stand alone means she doesn't need them to fulfill a role they thought was crucial to their identity. This creates a new and often disorienting dynamic where men must confront the fact that their value isn't tied to being a provider, but to their true selves. If you found this exploration of the Sigma female as intriguing and eye-opening as we did, don't miss out on more thought-provoking content. Hit that subscribe button to stay updated with our latest videos and join our community of curious minds. Your support helps us keep bringing you deep dives into the topics that matter most. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching, Jules. See you in the next video. Bye for now and stay blessed.